registered participants. So if you want to get this party started, I don't see any reason why not.
Very good. And you can just, excuse me, let folks in as they show up. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jim Tassi. I'm the Assistant Director for the Bicycle Coalition of Maine and the manager of our legislative effort. And I'd like to welcome you all to the Bicycle Coalition of Maine's forum to review bills that are relevant to bike, ped, and trail stakeholders. Today, we are going to be discussing a number of bills that are scheduled for hearings. So these are bills that are actionable as we speak in the next week or so. There are 4 bills that we are supporting, and there's 1 bill that we are opposing that we'll talk about in some detail. We're also going to just give a brief preview of 2 other bills that we are tracking, but which have not yet been scheduled for hearings. All of these bills impact the right, safety, and access of vulnerable users on Maine's roadways. I'm going to handle some of the bills, and the rest of my team, Angela and Eliza, will be taking other bills on as well. So with no further ado, I'm going to just jump in and start the conversation about the bills that we're tracking. And the first bill I'd like to talk about is LD 821, which is entitled An Act to Improve the Investigation and Prosecution of Cases that Involve Vulnerable Road Users. This is a bill that was submitted by Maddie Daughtry at the behest of one of our board members. It's a bill that we are supporting because this bill seeks to remedy a problem with respect to law enforcement, and the tickets or charges are actually quite rarely brought against the driver who injures or kills a vulnerable user, most often a person walking or bicycling, even when the driver admits they are at fault. The bill would require that any endangering incident or crash with a vulnerable user which results in injury or death shall be referred to the district attorney to consider whether charges should be issued. And the driving impetus behind this bill is that, you know, police officers who respond to bicycle and pedestrian crashes have to both investigate the facts of the crash and decide what sort of legal actions to take against the driver. In many cases, with that driver present, and, you know, often the bicycle or pedestrian, the bicycle rider or the pedestrian, if they're injured, they've been evac'd out of the scene. They're not present, and the police officer is relying on the, you know, the position of the driver, you know, and dealing with that conversation, as well as trying to get the objective evidence regarding the crash, can really lead to some you know, blurring of the line with respect to what should be done. Officers' empathy and understanding that the crash, you know, usually is not deliberate, can you know, interfere with their objective analysis of the facts and prevent them from pressing for the full punishments that these cases often deserve. We've heard actually from a high-ranking representative of Maine's law community that commented, typically, unless there's criminal conduct, we investigate and document the crash. Writing tickets doesn't change the outcome, so we rarely do. The problem is that in most cases, neither charges nor tickets are issued as a result of the investigation. LD 821 will change that situation by requiring a DA to review any case of a crash that results in the injury or death of a vulnerable user and permit a more deliberate, objective, and impartial decision removed from the immediate circumstances of the crash. We've spoken with the Cumberland County DA about this, and he does not feel that this would be burdensome to his office. The law will improve consistency of reporting. It will drive better investigation and reporting practices on the part of the police officers. You know, it'll really just capture more data so that we have more information about bike ped crashes and when charges or citations are being issued. And it really increases the chance for justice for victims of traffic violence by holding drivers responsible for the impacts of careless, irresponsible, or deadly driving. The failure of charges being issued in these cases is often rubbing salt into, you know, the often devastating wounds that these people have to live with for the rest of their lives if they survive. So this is a bill that we are supporting. This bill is up for public hearing on April 6th, Tuesday, April 6th. If you are interested in offering testimony on this bill, you can reach out to our team. I'm jim@bikemaine.org, and we can get you a fact sheet and a testimony template. We can help you just go through the process of submitting the testimony. If you'd like to read it, you can do that electronically. You don't need to go to Augusta. We're particularly interested in hearing from victims of crashes in which the driver was not cited. So if you are such a person or know of such a person, we encourage you to get in touch with us and consider offering testimony on this bill.
Would you give that address or whatever it was again to get the form?
Yep. So jim@bikemaine.org. At the end of the presentation, we'll have the final slide has the contact information for everyone on the team. But
thanks.
yeah, jim@bikemaine.org, BIKEMAINE.org. We are still lining up testimony for this bill, and I'm trying to get the Cumberland County Sheriff's Office to support it as well. We're seeing how that's going. State Police, last time I talked to them, was neither for nor against, and I probably will reach out and talk to them again. Are there any questions about this before we move to the next bill?
Yeah, this is Wendell. 2 questions. Does the bill require that police cite someone in a accident of this nature? And is that any different? What's different from the policeman's standpoint?
From the policeman's standpoint, right now, a crash investigation stays within just the law enforcement community. It goes to the chief of the state police, and it goes, it's handled internally within the local law enforcement agency. Officers have a ton of discretion in what they do in responding to these crashes. And what we're finding again and again is that they're simply not either issuing tickets or charges in these incidents. And so the hope is that by getting these kicked up to the DA will realize, how often these are happening. It'll raise the profile of the seriousness and frequency of these crashes. And we hope will, either drive more police action, at the civil traffic violation level, or more criminal charges being issued in cases where, flagrant misconduct occurs.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna send you a text for the in order to testify. I've been hit twice. A third one I probably won't make it through the next one.
We'd love to hear from you. Was the driver not cited in the cases that you were involved with?
The first instance was down in Maryland. I was riding in a bike lane, and the vehicle accelerated past me. I could hear the engine roar. And as they accelerated, I noticed in my left eye they were starting to turn. So I'm going along at 20 miles an hour on the bike. They accelerate, slam on the brakes, take a right-hand turn.
Yep.
Take me right out, broke 2 ribs. When I bounced off the curb, I hit so hard that I then bounced back up, hit the side of the car a second time, back onto the curb a second time, at which point I thought I had punctured a lung. I was in bad shape. So they took me off in an ambulance. No one knew where the bike was. Absolutely nobody knew where I was, because I was, supposed to be on a plane at that point from Maryland back to Portland. It was a mess.
Wendell, that sounds like a horrible situation. I look forward to hearing from you. I don't mean to cut your time off, but I do want to get through the other bills. It sounds like, you would be a compelling person to offer testimony on this particular bill.
Well, that was going to be my question. In terms of testimony, okay. It'll just be written to explain.
You can you write something up, and then you have the option when it's submitted of deciding whether you would like to read it in person during the hearing, or if you just want to submit it as a text document. Everything has happened virtually, so you don't have to actually go to Augusta. You'll be able to just do what you're doing now and be able to offer the testimony. And I hope you'll consider reading it, because I think that when the committee hears these stories firsthand, it has a much greater impact.
I suspected as much. At the time that it happened, there were no officers willing to come forward, including the officer who handled the incident. And I've been frustrated ever since.
Yes, well, and the fact that they didn't know where your bike was, and these are the kinds of issues that we're hearing about all the time, that the police officers in Maine get their crash investigation training when they're at the academy, and they don't really get any kind of refresher again. And we tried to get a training module put into the academy a couple years ago. They opted not to take on the crash investigation refresher, which would have included a whole module on investigating bike ped crashes. So in the absence of the police departments really stepping up and doing the best possible job, what we're trying to do is just kick up the seriousness of these incidents by making DA review mandatory. And if this passes, I know that it's already been looked at nationally, and if Maine is successful in making this happen, it will probably become a template for other communities. And I will just say, my last point is that this is actually, this referral process is based upon a similar process that happens with victims of sexual abuse and sexual violence. So that the idea is that these cases where people are so vulnerable, they need to be reviewed and they need to be acted upon at a level above simply the responding officer. So that's the first bill that we're working on. I'm going to just move us along to the next bill so that we can get through them all and we can entertain more questions at the end. The next bill is going to be covered by Eliza, and it deals with electric bikes.
Hi, everyone. LD 1109 and LD 1110 are both bills that the BCM has submitted to make changes or rectify issues with things that were passed last year. LD 1109 is an act to align equipment requirements for electric bicycles with national manufacturing standards. The bill will require that electric assist bicycles under Maine law with will align speedometer requirements for electric assist bicycles under Maine law with the types installed on electric bicycles manufactured and shipped for sale. The bill corrects a flaw in the original law regulating low-speed electric assist bicycles. The original bill proposed only class 3 bicycles having speedometers, as they are the class that goes the fastest and requires the greatest need for speed moderation. However, the draft bill applied the speedometer requirement to all classes 1, 2, and 3. And it unfortunately was missed by the reviewers of the bill. Class 1 and 2 e-bikes, assist bicycles travel no faster than very strong riders and on unassisted bicycles, and therefore the bicycle industry does not typically include speedometers on those bikes. This requirement in Maine law is unnecessary and complicates things for small bike shops. So we would like to modify this law to clarify that only class 3 e-bikes are required to have or be equipped with speedometers. Does anyone have any particular questions about this bill? Okay. Not seeing anyone, so.
Yeah, I do have one question. There are 3 classes of e-bikes, but there are also electric motorcycles now. Where does that transition happen?
Well, these bills specifically only address e-bikes. Motorized vehicles do not fall under this law in particular, and I can't really speak to exactly what those are classified as. I don't know if Jim or Angela has details about that, but this specifically addresses e-bikes and how they are addressed in Maine state law.
Yeah, and the short answer is that any electrified device, whether it's got 2 wheels or 3 wheels or 4 wheels, if it does not conform to the 3-class system that's currently in Maine law, it is regulated as something else. And so it is not considered an e-bike. And we're focusing on the class 1, 2, and 3 because they are the most bicycle-like devices out there. There is talk of a class 4 device being promoted by the industry, but that is, it's closer to, you know, something like a moped or an e-motorcycle. And we would oppose regulating such a device as a bicycle because we think that at that point it is too different a device to be regulated as a bicycle.
Thank you, Jim.
So I have a question. Do we have the support of the sponsor of the original bill?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, this like Eliza said, this corrects like a little goof in the process that neither the sponsor, neither the BCM reviewers, neither People for Bikes, who was also in the mix on this one, everyone sort of was focused on another part of that legislation and overlooked this. So this is just bringing back to, as Eliza said, the reality that more and more e-bikes, especially class 1s and 2s, are being shipped without speedometers, whereas class 3s will still be required to have them under Maine law under this bill.
Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. We will move on to LD 1110, an act to clarify the authority to manage electrical bicycle access on off-road trails. This bill seeks to clarify access for class 1 and 2 electric assist bicycles on trails open for use by mountain bikes, and that they should be the discretion of the municipality or local authority with jurisdiction over the trail system. So under the current law, electric assist bicycles are technically prohibited from mountain bike trails. This language changes to this bill would comfort mountain bike trail system managers, as it has been proven to complicate matters by creating uncertainty, and would basically allow for trail managers to have the ability and the jurisdiction to determine whether or not e-bikes would be permitted on their trails. Research has established that e-bikes do not damage trails any more than unassisted bicycles, and devices do not automatically create user conflicts. Even unassisted bikes can easily and do at times cause speed-related conflicts, and electric assist bicycles are already being used on all types of trails. So this would really empower trail managers to post signage as to whether or not they were in fact willing to allow e-bike access. This bill would also provide a sense of clarity for bike shops that are selling these bicycles. There have been anecdotes that e-bike sales have not been as good as they possibly could be because shops have been uncertain about where to tell folks they can actually ride these. So ultimately, this bill would put the decision-making power in the hands of the trail manager or the municipality that has jurisdiction over these trails, and encourage people, those managers, to proactively post signage as to whether or not e-bikes are or are not permitted on that trail system. Does anyone have particular questions about this bill?
I think Kathy Wilson's got her hand up.
Oh, I can't see that. Kathy,
that's
if
all
you'd
right.
like to go.
Having just purchased an e-bike
Yay!
last fall, I know. I did it because I had got to the point where I couldn't go all the places I wanted to go anymore because I'm old and a heart thing and all that other. So I'm really hoping that I can go to, I mean, I don't want those, whatever it is, off-road trails. I'm not gonna climb mountains or anything like that, but I know I've heard about places like Arcadia and the Eastern Trail that goes from Portland down and whatever. I'd love to be able to ride on that, and I'm not sure whether I can or can't. So I would like to, I would love to be able to go on wherever. So I did talk to Maddie the other day, and I told her I'd testify when it came to one of these, but
if you would like to testify, you would be a like perfect person to testify on e-bike access. Yes, shoot us an email and we'll get you some information and a template.
I will do
And
that.
FYI, the Bicycle Coalition of Maine worked with the Eastern Trail, and they do permit Class 1 and Class 2 e-bikes on the Eastern Trail, or at least Class 1.
I don't even know what I have.
Speed limit is 15 miles per hour or less.
Yeah, they don't have to worry about that. My average speed is 9 or 10.
Perfect.
Glad you're out riding.
Oh yeah, I already been out some this year. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, if there are no further comments or questions, I will turn it over to Angela to discuss LD 806.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. So LD 806, that's an act to clarify that municipal officers may accept a proposed unaccepted way for pedestrian, bicycle, and other non-motorized use. So this bill clarifies the law on unaccepted ways, which is also the term for paper streets. The origin of the term paper street is that the street was recorded on an official plan or map that is only on paper. It was never developed into a paved roadway. So this bill clarifies that town or city officials can make the decision on opening up a paper street to the public, and specifically designates it for non-motorized use. So walking, biking, any other non-motorized mode. And opening up these unaccepted ways or paper streets to the public for walking and rolling will increase public space, which is highly desirable space for communities. And the pandemic has really highlighted how useful and beneficial outdoor space is for people's well-being, good for both physical, mental health. And public access to paper streets also increases the connectivity of an area to reach destinations on foot or on bike, as trails do. So the public hearing date for LD 806 is April 7th, 10:15 a.m. if people want to support that. And this bill is sponsored by Senator Ann Carney, and it has 8 co-sponsors. So this is something that people are interested in. Any questions about this bill?
Yeah, so basically that is just opening up right of ways for public access.
Correct. Yes, and just making clear that the public officials, the town or city officials can make these decisions. Because currently the law's a little confusing.
Oh, I understand that. We've had quite a lot of trouble here in Falmouth
Okay.
because some of the public streets, the paper streets, go down to the shorefront. Therefore, who has access to the shore and who doesn't?
Right. That's a good example.
And it's
Yeah.
very contentious.
That's a perfect example. That's, I live in Cape Elizabeth, and that's one of the big issues here as well. It's like a paper street right near the shoreline. Some people want to be able to walk there. Some people say, nope, that's closed. But this would permit a town government to say, we're going to exercise our rights to open this up as a public way, but not permit cars on it.
All right.
Well, I guess if there are no more questions, I'm up again to talk about LD 1230. And this is a bill we are opposing. And this is a bill that really got our attention as soon as we heard about it. And thank you, Art Bell, for first bringing it to our attention. Essentially, what this bill does is it requires that bicyclists who are operating on a roadway have to single up whenever they are being overtaken by motor vehicles. And it makes the failure to do so a traffic infraction that you can be ticketed for. The BCM is opposing this primarily on the grounds of safety, because we feel that, you know, there are situations in which on a narrow road where the far to right provision is exempted anyway, you know, bicycles in the road are easier to see if they are side by side in some cases. And moreover, as the image shows, you know, if you've got even 4 bicycle riders riding 2 abreast, they are a much, you know, shorter thing to pass than 4 bike riders strung out. And our illustration here shows, you know, 10 bike riders wheel to wheel is only about 30 feet long. Those same 10 bike riders stretched out, again, wheel to wheel, is 53 feet. When you figure in that most people do offer a little bit more space, you know, it's very easy for these strings of riders to wind up being, you know, over 50, 60, 70 feet long. And what that does is it forces a car to be in the oncoming lane longer if they're changing lanes to pass. And we're also concerned that, you know, this expectation that you always have to move out of the way infringes upon the bicycle operators' decision-making process about where in the lane they feel it's the safest place to be. This strikes us as a bill that is going to increase unsafe passes. It's going to increase harassment issues, and it is going to adversely impact roadway safety. We are going to be reaching out to the state police and some other entities trying to get their support for opposing this bill. But this is one that we're pretty concerned about, and we're going to be mobilizing bicycle clubs and other groups that do occasionally ride in group contexts. And you know, we firmly believe that you have to think about other road users out there, and you should do everything you can to not impede the free and you know, convenient flow of traffic for all users. But convenience should not be at the expense of safety. And we feel that this bill is bad for safety. If, again, you're interested in testifying on this, we'd love to hear from you. Are there any questions about this bill?
Yeah, the only question I have is 78% of all states allow this?
Yeah, well,
Maine
yeah.
one of
So,
the few that doesn't?
so there are 39 of the 50 states have no restrictions on 2 abreast riding at all. 2 states, Hawaii and Nebraska, specifically outlawed at all times. And I want to say 29 states, like there's a subset of that 39 that actually explicitly permits 2 abreast riding, recognizing that it is sometimes safer from a conspicuity point of view. It's safer from a lane controlling point of view, and it's you know, sometimes just pleasant to be able to sit side by side on a ride and talk to your friend. But yeah, the majority of states make no sort of requirement that you have to single up.
So
I have-
did you say 29 states permit 2 abreast?
It's either 29 or 19, but it's explicitly in the law that they say
No, but
2
that's the
abreast
point I
riding
was
is
trying to
okay.
get to.
Beg
That's much
pardon?
more important than saying 78%, of which half of that is nobody's done anything.
We'll make that edit in the in how we present that information. Thanks for the observation and suggestion.
I have a question or a comment. Actually, this surprises me a little bit. As you explain it, I understand. However, my experience is, and I will tell you, it's been on the road going into Cumberland Center. I have had to go there several times when there's 2 people. The road is narrow and the road is hilly. And so you can't always see far enough. And they're usually what I call spandex riders. They're going pretty fast. And and it seems to, you have to pull way out to get by them.
Mhm.
And they're going so fast that you have, it's quite a way. Usually there's a hill and a turn before you can get by them. And I thought, and I always thought, geez, if you'd only get in single file, I could get by you and get the hell out of your way. And as a biker, I have empathy for them. But so I always thought, gee, single file would be better. Now, but now I'm listening to you, and in many cases, this makes sense.
In
Right.
many cases, yep. And we do encourage that, you don't, don't be a jerk is how we kind of boil it down. If someone's trying to get by you and it's safe for you to single up and permit the pass, you absolutely should do that.
So
But
it's
this
an
would
education.
require you to single up even in situations where it might not be safe. So you
Yeah.
don't want to get past on an approach on a blind hill. You don't want to get past in a curve.
Yeah.
And the danger here is that it sends the message to drivers that, they always have a right to pass a bicyclist, and it is the bicyclist's duty to get out of your way. And that conflicts with existing law. And again, we think it will adversely affect, the roadway culture and safety.
I would say I can change my mind and support this now, but I would say that education to bikers is going to be vital, because a lot of people in cars get so pissed off about it. And so education to bikers and the public about this is going to make a huge difference as to how smooth it'll all go. Just saying.
Jim,
But yeah, I can see the point. I've changed
Yeah.
my mind. I'm with you.
Well, very good. That's why we do these
Jim?
things.
Yeah.
Here,
I
another.
do have a question.
Yes, sir.
What is the current law? Because I understand cyclists have a 3-foot right of way. When cars pass you, they have to allow you 3 foot.
That is correct. And so
Would this push the vehicle all the way into the other lane?
well, and frankly, that's what we think should happen most of the time when a car passes a bicyclist anyway, that you should be changing lanes to pass. Maine state law requires that a bicyclist ride as far to the right as is practicable, except when it is unsafe to do so. And then there's a whole list of conditions when you don't have to stay far to the right. And a narrow road is actually one of the conditions in which that requirement is exempted, because if a bike and a car cannot share a lane with 3 feet between them, that road under state law is considered of substandard width. And so a bicyclist can be anywhere within that lane, in that circumstance. When a car passes a bicyclist, they do have to give a minimum of 3 feet. We usually say, that is a minimum. And some states have what's called a graduated passing law. So the faster you're going, the more space you're required to give. In Maine, it is a minimum of 3 feet. And that it doesn't matter where in the lane the bicyclist is, you have to give that minimum of 3 feet. So in a narrow lane, it's probably most prudent and safe for that driver to completely change lanes to pass. And that's generally what we think is best practice. We like to tell people, how would you pass a tractor pulling, a hay wagon, right? You would slow down, you'd wait for a safe place to pass, and then you'd pass them by changing lanes and getting by them. You don't start beeping your horn and tell that tractor, which is going as fast as, or slower than a lot of bike riders groups travel. You don't lay on your horn and expect that guy to pull out of the way. Everyone has a right to the road, and we really feel that the drivers of automobiles need to practice a little bit of sharing as well. To Kathy's point, if it's a curvy up and down road, if you can't see far enough ahead to make sure you can make the pass safely, you should probably just calm down and wait a little. Did that answer your question?
Is there any onus on the cyclist to likewise just go off into the south shoulder and get off his bike till they can get by?
There is not. There is no requirement under law to do anything like that. And our concern is that, is this bill a slippery slope to, bicyclists should not be on certain roads, or bicyclists should just be getting out of the way of cars all the time. I mean, most people who ride bikes also own cars and drive. And we see this bill as really sort of stepping on the rights of bicyclists to use the roads that they've also paid for. you know, we do understand that group rides are sometimes a source of heartburn for drivers, but the reality is, you know, they have every right to be there. And the safest thing for people to do is slow down and wait for that safe place to pass. And, you know, research has shown that most of the time, you know, it's less than 5 minutes before you can find a safe place to pass. And in many cases, you know, much less than that.
Last question, where did this bill come from? What was the
Bill
impetus?
is sponsored by Representative Allison Hepler. We don't know all the circumstances of where it comes from. Sometimes legislators are asked to submit by constituents and whether or not they support it. One of the legislators that we work with a lot, Maddie Daughtry, knows Representative Hepler and said that she was going to reach out to her. I've not had the chance to close the loop with Maddie to see you know, more of the background to this particular bill, but we don't like it. We think it's unsafe. It's stepping on the rights of bicyclists to use the roads, and we think it sets a bad precedent.
I would just throw out here, and I'm, as an old horseback rider, horses have the same right. They have a right of way, and if you think about it, in the Amish and their wagons, they have the right of way. Although most people don't know that. So, and you're supposed to go around, you know, if you see somebody riding a horse down the road. So there's already some stuff out there about all of this. So considering all other things than automobiles, people seem to think the automobile is a superior right of way being. And it's
Yes,
not.
they do.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily, especially if you get into the Amish country or in the country where, you know, people are riding horses. Anyhow, just
No.
there are other things that equate with this.
Exactly, right. And if you think about, you know, looking at our image, like, you know, a horse and carriage is probably, you know, about the size of, you know, 4 to 6 bikes riding 2 by 2. And that would be an easier thing to pass than those same bicyclists stretched out on a longer string on a curvy road where, you know, God forbid that driver starts passing that string of riders, realizes they can't make it, has to move abruptly to the right and takes out 3 of the riders that he couldn't get by because he didn't have the time or she didn't have the time to pass.
Interesting. Thank you.
Jim, I think this ties right into the Slow Me Down campaign that we're doing because, you know, and it's a double-edged sword, but from an automobile point of view, I can see not wanting 2 bicyclists chatting away while I'm waiting for them to finish their conversation. But when I'm going up the hill, you know, 90% of the bicyclists in Maine are going to pass me. So at some point, there's going to be 2 of us abreast. And, you know, so that's, you know, a good example of that's not going to happen quickly. And the other thing is speed. If you're passing me and you're in spandex and I'm just huffing along, even then, while that might not take long, if the automobiles are going 60 miles an hour, you know, when you pull out to pass me, there's no one in your rear view mirror. You're good to go. But all of a sudden, bang, some automobile driver's right on your butt because you're speeding or going the speed limit. And hills are a prime example, hills and curves. We don't have shoulders. I can't safely go off on a shoulder in down East Maine. And, you know, as a pedestrian, I can walk off a shoulder, but on a bicycle, when I go off a shoulder, God only knows what I'm going to run into. At least there are no alligators in Maine. But anyway, I think
turtles.
this is too vague, and it discriminates against us because too many automobile drivers are driving too fast and think they have priority over everything else on the pavement. And a big education challenge on both sides. So thank you for bringing this up.
Thank you for the comment. I think you guys get it. I mean, this is really, it's really a discriminatory bill. That's the way we look at it. Any other comments or observations on this bill? Again, if you're interested in testifying, reach out and we'll get you some talking points and a testimony template. This is actually one of our priority bills. We're pretty concerned about this. We don't want to see this one become law. So any help you can give would be great. If there are no other comments, I'm going to turn it back over to Eliza and Angela, who are going to talk about two other bills that are not yet scheduled for hearings. And I did just check this morning to confirm that they have not yet been scheduled, but they're bills that we feel the Bike Ped Trail Caucus should be aware of, should know that we're aware of them, and should consider supporting. We'll be continuing to add to this list as we move along. So I'll turn it over to Eliza and Angela, and then I'll offer some concluding remarks at the very end and take more
Do you
questions.
have the date for the LD 1110?
Yep, 1110 is happening on April 8th at 1 p.m. All of the bike bills, so 1109, 1110, and 1230 are all happening on April 8th at 1 p.m. 821 is happening at 1 p.m. on Tuesday, April 6th. And 806, the paper street bill, is happening Wednesday. Did you say 10 o'clock, Angela, or 10:30?
10:15.
10:15 and yeah, April 7th.
So 10, 12:30, and which other one is on April 8th?
1109.
Okay, thanks.
That's the one. That's the one that just aligns
Yeah.
the law with manufacturers' equipment,
Yeah.
and we're hoping that that's just going to be a rubber stamp and move through. We're actually hoping both of the e-bike bills will be pretty non-confrontational or controversial.
Thank you.
Eliza, you want to walk us through 669?
Yeah, I will make it quick in the interest of trying to get people out of here on time. 669, an act to ensure public ways are compliant with the Federal Americans Disabilities Act of 1990. The Bicycle Coalition of Maine believes that roadways are for everyone, and that all public facilities should address everybody's mobility and safety needs. Building roadways that meet federal ADA standards are essential for all users. This bill would ensure that the Department of Transportation projects that include construction, maintenance, or repair of public ways meet all federal requirements stated in the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. And any project on that way or any facility on that way must be updated, relocated, or installed to ensure this compliance. This is essential and basically just guarantees that these standards are alive and well in Maine state law. I will hand it over to Angela so she can talk about hers really quickly, and then we can take final questions or remarks at the end for anyone who has them. But we just want to make sure that we get through everything we have here today before 12:45, which is currently.
Okay. All right. So LD 672, this resolve will bring the Department of Economic and Community Development, the Maine DOT, and the Governor's Office of Policy, Innovation, and the Future to collaboratively conduct a study on the costs and benefits of a paved multi-use trail along the Mountain Division trail line. And this bill is specific to approximately 28 miles of the state-owned railroad corridor on the Mountain Division line that connects the town of Standish and the town of Freiburg. So this section for the study is between two sections of trails that the Maine DOT constructed years ago and are very popular. The 4-mile paved rail trail in Freiburg and the 5-mile paved rail trail in Gorham-Wyndham. So both of these bills, LD 669 and LD 672, have the potential to increase mobility, connectivity, livability, and economic development, which are the goals of this caucus. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Angela, and thanks, Eliza. And there are more bills that we're tracking on our tracking form. We're currently up to 32 bills that we're paying attention to. We've already submitted testimony on about 4. We plan to continue to keep an eye on things and to testify on bills that have an impact on bicycle, pedestrian, or trail user stakeholders. We want to keep you in the loop, so we hope that you'll stay in touch. As if you're a legislator, we do urge you to hit that link, tinyurl.com/bikeped trail caucus, and that will enable you to get updates that we'll be sending out periodically about bills that we're tracking and about actions that we suggest you should take. All of you legislators, and indeed all of you participants, talk with your legislators. And if you have representatives or senators that are on the Transportation Committee, please reach out to them and let them know how you feel about these bills. We'll be getting some more resources together to make it easier for you to contact the Transportation Committee. But if you email us now, we can get you that list pretty quickly. We do want you to stay in touch with us. If you have questions, concerns, or you hear stuff that you want to, ask questions about or refer people to us, don't be shy about doing that. Ideas for amendments we want to hear about as well, so that if we need to move into negotiations about how to tweak some of these bills, we can do that. Again, we do have a webpage that provides some information about the bills that we're monitoring, and that's the address there below. You can check that out and see what we're looking at and why we're taking the position that we are. We are currently planning to transition these sorts of kind of reviews of bills into an email and text message context. But if you found this valuable, please let us know in an email, because we're not opposed to continuing to do these virtual face-to-face meetings. I mean, all we see are faces on these things. But we do appreciate your participating in today's conversation. Again, those are the emails for the advocacy team. Very easy. Jim@bikemaine.org, Angela@bikemaine.org, Eliza@bikemaine.org. And that concludes today's program. But we're happy to stay around for another 10 minutes and answer questions, or just have additional conversation about these bills. So thanks again. And we're going to hang out and take questions if you have any. Otherwise, thanks a lot and have a great day.